So I'd like to introduce our three speakers. So we have Jason Bowers from the Oracle Apps Unlimited team. Jason is the Chief Operating Officer for Apps Unlimited in Western Europe. And it's a great pleasure to have Jason along with us, representing, of course, JD Edwards in this case, but obviously for Apps Unlimited, many other enterprise technologies, but JD Edwards for the purposes of tonight and today. Daniel Smith from Steltix, who is the product manager globally for Oracle Guided Learning for JDE. And Peter Bellier, Senior Director from Oracle University. And so today we have the pillars that have basically brought about Oracle Guided Learning for JDE to you, and we welcome those speakers and look forward to their presentation. With that, I'll hand things over to Jason to take us through the keynote speech. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you, Chris, and welcome everybody to today's webinar. I'm delighted to welcome you today to take you through and to discuss the exciting developments in change management and training within JDE. And as Chris mentioned, today's webinar is focused upon JDE, but obviously within Applications Unlimited, we are responsible for a number of products. So my name is Jason Bowers. I am the Chief Operating Officer for Oracle Applications Unlimited, covering Western Europe. So as we all know, the continuous quarterly release program from Oracle has been instrumental in driving ongoing evolution within JDE. Our digital strategy for JDE empowers our users with cutting-edge capabilities such as Orchestrator, which enables you to streamline and automate the processes within your businesses. This not only enhances the efficiency, but also fosters a culture of agility and adaptability. However, the rapid pace of continuous release and innovation means that there's a call for a fresh approach to traditional change management and the training methods. And whilst technology plays a crucial role, it's equally important to focus on developing our people, our processes, to ensure successful outcomes. It's this integration of people, process, technology that forms the cornerstone of our strategy, of Oracle's strategy. At Oracle, we're committed to providing solutions that not only enhance the user adoption, but also proactively raise awareness of the new features and the better ways to work. That's why I was delighted when I was asked to do the opening keynote for the webinar, which today is focused upon Oracle's Guided Learning for JDE. Oracle Guided Learning for JDE represents a paradigm shift in training methodologies. It overturns the conventional approach of training individuals once and expecting lasting effectiveness. Many of us know that doesn't work in a number of areas. Instead, it serves as a catalyst for continuous training to assist the users in embracing continuous innovation, but also ensuring the adherence to policy and process changes for that maximum business success. It's built upon Oracle's digital adoption platform, also known as OGL. OGL boasts an impressive 7 million users and has been rigorously tested on over 40 applications. It's a testament to our commitment to excellence. It's been built and developed in collaboration with Steltix, Oracle University, and Oracle's JDE product development. And the solution is tailored to revolutionize user learning experiences and to drive the user adoption of continuous innovation within your organization. So to finish, it's Oracle Guided Learning for JDE, it's not just a tool, it's a strategic investment in the future of your business. By embracing continuous learning and innovation, we can unlock new opportunities and stay ahead of the curve in today's rapidly evolving landscape. So thank you for your attention. Thank you for allowing me to address you all. I will hand over now to Peter and the team from Oracle University and Celtics to take you through how Oracle Guided Learning for JDE can support the business goals. Enjoy the webinar.
Thank you, Jason, and welcome everybody to this webinar. My name is Peter Belia. I'm the Senior Director for Customer Success Services at Oracle. What I'm going to cover today is digital adoption platforms, and the first thing we probably need to understand is why do we need a digital adoption platform? What problem are we solving with those platforms? And Jason has been mentioning, the three key elements of any, I would say, digital transformation, which is technology, processes, and people. Digital adoption platforms are targeting the third element, which is the people specifically. It is not meant to address issues with the technology or process design. And there's a lot of confusion around that. So what I will do is I will use an example from my personal experience that probably will clarify, what we mean by addressing people issues in digital transformation. 20 or more than 20 years ago, I was a financial analyst. And at that time, I was producing a lot of static reports in Excel. For example, people would ask me, what was the revenue by country that we had last quarter? What was the revenue by customer? What was the revenue by product? And for each of those questions, I had to produce a static Excel report. And then at some point, Excel, innovated and brought to us what we call now pivot tables. That was a huge leap forward. For any financial analyst at the time, you would save a tremendous amount of time by only producing one report, one pivot table that would answer any of those questions. So with one report, you would be able to show the revenue across different segments, and that would save us so much time. So you would think that people would adopt pivot table very quickly because it was really easy to use. In just 3 steps, you can create your pivot table. You don't need to redesign any of the processes. So it was really a great innovation. However, I would say that it probably took 5 or 6 years before we could see most of the people in finance using pivot tables and sending you pivot tables to their internal customers instead of continuing to produce individual static reports. And you can imagine in a company of the size of Oracle, where we have thousands of finance people, how much time was wasted every day simply because of the people factor, because many people didn't have the time to invest in understanding how to build a pivot table. Some of them were not comfortable with it because it was kind of a black box. Some of them didn't think it was their priority. And so during all those years, we had thousands of people continuing to produce individual static reports instead of sending one single pivot table. So that's what we call the adoption deficit. It's a real issue, and if you would have to measure it in terms of return on investment, it is big. It is a lot of money. Thousands of people times a number of hours every day wasted. It's a real return on investment burden. So on the next slide, what we are going to see is how we can solve this type of people issue. And at Oracle, we have created our own digital adoption platform that we call Guided Learning. And this platform lays on top of our SaaS applications or any web application, actually. And it provides just information that the user needs in the flow of work. The way you could think about it is think about a GPS. So I want to go from point A to point B, but I don't want to waste my time figuring out, which one is the best way, and where's the traffic stuck, and is there an alternative to this route? All I want is, as quickly as possible, as I'm driving, I get instruction, and I don't have to think about it. I just follow the guide. And that's what we do with a digital adoption platform. We elevate the user experience. So we make it very easy for them to discover the application, to navigate through the application, and to have the correct behavior in the application. So with that GPS now, what we can do is really solve any adoption challenge that is related to people, whether people are slow in terms of productivity, whether people are making mistakes because they don't understand what is expected of them exactly in each of the field. We save them time because they don't have to search for the information. They don't have to search for training. We put those training through videos directly in the application. And we also can communicate with pop-up messages directly in the application. So that really has revolutionized, as Jason was saying, the way we are training people and the way we are driving adoption. So that's what a digital application does at a high level. And what we're going to see on the next slide is, once we ask our customers what are the visible benefits beyond elevating the user experience, what they tell us through a survey that IDC has been managing is that they can see immediately a 63% reduction in the number of support requests that the end users are raising in terms of how-to questions. How do I do this? How do I do that? 63% reduction. That's pretty huge. We also see an acceleration of the time to value. The projects are running 52% faster in terms of change management. And also it simplifies the life of our change management teams by reducing their effort typically by 40%. Overall, what it means to customers is that they see a return on investment on digital adoption platforms after only 3 months. Again, this is not Oracle saying that. This is IDC, who's been running a survey on customers, and this is the customer survey. So we think there are great benefits to a digital adoption platform, and we encourage every of our customer to take advantage of those benefits by implementing digital adoption platforms. On the next slide, what we can see is that our own digital adoption platform, again called Guided Learning, is a very mature product. It's been there for many years, and it's been deployed across 1,200 customers, and actually we are way over that number now, but at the time that would represent 7 million users. We have put some logos of customers here. They don't fit on the page, as you can imagine. 1,200, we have many. So the product has been tested over many use cases, over many scenarios. And on the next slide, what we can see is that actually people think very often that Guided Learning only works on Oracle products. That is not the case. We have also tested the application on non-Oracle applications. And so we can confirm that it works as long as you are using a web application on HTML5 or above. So, just wanted to make sure that you are aware of the fact that we can use Guided Learning for Oracle application, but also on non-Oracle application, because we know many of our customers, they have hybrid cloud solutions, or they run processes sometimes across several applications. And with Guided Learning, we're able to provide a consistent experience across all of those applications for the end users. Okay. And what I wanted to say at last to finish my segment is that today specifically we talk about OGL for JD Edwards. This initiative started in Asia Pacific, and my colleague Jason Mathias has been working very closely with Celtics. Stealthix has got an experience on JDE, and so what we did with them first is make sure that we address the specific needs of JD Edwards customers. So we work with Stealthix very closely to make sure that OGL would fit the specific needs and would work as intended on JD Edwards. The second thing that Stealthix did is that they invested a lot of time and money on developing specific tools and services for OGL for JD Edwards. And the last thing that Stealthix did, which is something very unique as well, is that they have put in place a global go-to-market strategy to make sure that we could cover customers globally across the globe. Because whether you work in Europe, whether you work in North America or in Asia Pacific, they are able to support our customers. So it is my pleasure to then hand over this presentation to the next presenter, which is going to be Daniel, and Daniel's going to show us how the product works in action. Thank you. Daniel, over to you.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Jason. I'll just prepare the screen, so just bear with me a second. Okay, so thank you, and I appreciate everyone taking the time to join this webinar. I'm excited to present the Oracle Guided Learning for JDE demonstration. The way we're going to do this is to showcase the solution across 3 different personas. So the first will be the end user experience. So this is how the solution manifests itself or presents itself for users of the JDE application. And I'll show some of the features that both Jason and Peter have spoken about in terms of the messaging, the process guides, that in-application navigation path to get to the transaction in the least possible steps, but with the most context around your business and the policies that your business has. The second feature that I'll show, or the second capability, is the analytics. So this is the component of the solution that provides insights into the training material, the process guides, how are your users using the training material, what are they using, how successfully are they completing training guides, what feedback are they providing in terms of the content, is there room for improvement. Every element of information is captured that the users are processing, such that you can make informed decisions around the capability and completeness of your training material. I'll then also take you through how the content is authored, and I'll cover things such as multilingual capability. We know that training material needs to be available in a multitude of different languages. I'll show how the solution is managed, and how it is authored, and how it is created from a content management perspective. So at this point, I'm going to jump into JDE. So the scenario here that we're showcasing is, I'm going to showcase some of the OGL features. So we've logged into the application, and the first thing you can see in the use case here is using the messaging capability that Peter introduced. So we can use OGL to broadcast messages to a single user, a group of users, so a JDE role, it's integrated into the JDE roles, or the entire organization. So in this particular scenario, we are showcasing the fact that it's a month end approaching, and we're communicating to our group of users that month end's approaching. These are the sorts of transactions that you should be undertaking before month end hits us to fast track and smooth the process for the finance team. And if you do not know how to enter these particular transactions, there's useful tips here to guide you on that particular transaction, whether it's entering the time, whether it's receiving purchase orders. The second feature that you'll see is addressing the specific challenge that we have from a JDE perspective around the ongoing release of functionality and capability into the JDE application and communicating that to your end users. So the feature I'm going to showcase now is this beacon. So we can use beacons, which is an OGL feature, to highlight, again, it could be time sensitive or role specific. We can use it to highlight certain features that we've activated in our environment. In this particular scenario, the administrators or the managers of the JDE environment have recently upgraded the environment, and we've activated the watch list functionality. So we can A, communicate that to end users, and B, we can point them to a video, which we can run in the application, or a process guide training material on how to use that watchlist functionality. So the core of the application in relation to OGL is the widget. So the integrated nature of OGL, so the OGL widget sits on top of JDE, and this displays and presents all of the training material or process guides and other features that are available to a specific user. Now I'm logged in as a role that can see all of the training material, but such is the nature of the integration that if you've logged on as a supply chain manager, then you'll see the supply chain manager training material. If you've logged on as a finance user, you'll see the finance training material. So this is where you access all of the process guides. Process guides are the step-by-step guides to step you through a particular transaction, as well as the other help. For the purpose of the demonstration, I'm going to execute a process guide on how to enter a purchase order, a transaction that any and all organization will typically allow their staff to do, and usually forms part of the onboarding process. And we can use the solution to facilitate onboarding for new employees. But for the purposes of today, I'm going to step through the creation of a purchase order. So I'm going to click on the process, create purchase order information. The solution's smart enough to know that I'm new to the organization. I haven't entered a purchase order before. I haven't executed this training material before. It is going to present me with an option to perhaps review the procurement policy of the organization. So as with every organization, you have rules around what you can procure, how you procure it, the delegated financial authority associated to that. So I can embed policy information as and when I'm entering a particular transaction, which is a key feature of the Oracle Guided Learning solution. Just going to follow the solution as we go. Now it's going to ask me to navigate to my specific application. Enter a stock-based purchase order. I'm going to follow the tiles, follow the recommendations. And what you can see here is it's focused. It's really providing those guardrails, that navigation and application navigation that we introduced earlier. It's asking me to add a particular transaction. I can't click anywhere else. At this point, it's going to present me with a purchase order header information. And OGL is further prompting me and providing me additional context around this particular business process or this particular application. So OGL, which you can see, it's presenting some text there. It's actually showing me and giving me some insight around what the supplier field represents to my business. So that's this box here. I'm also able to configure smart tips, which can be used on any application and can be present when you enter the application. It doesn't necessarily need to be part of a process guide. So for this organization, what we're communicating to our users here is this supplier field, it's required to be set up by the supplier onboarding team. If your particular supplier that you're wanting to create a purchase order against isn't set up, then please fill out this onboarding form. So again, you can link it to the policy information or the form associated to onboarding a particular supplier. So I'm just going to enter my dummy supplier and my ship to. I hit next, and I'm going to enter a ship to information, which is where I want the items to be shipped. That's just some demo data that we've got set up. A couple of other features that OGL enable you to do within JDE that we haven't had the capability of doing previously. You can also embed some conditional logic within the application. So in this particular example, this organization doesn't allow, in this circumstance, the user to enter information into the carrier field. So we can use OGL to block fields and provide information or the rationale for that, which can be conditional. So if you think of things like category codes, where there's a relationship between an order type, a stocking location, and the actual information that you're wanting to enter, then you can start to build up some conditional logic as to how your users navigate through a process guide, which is extremely powerful. I'll just continue the guide and ultimately create that purchase order header, which is going to take me to the purchase order detail information. Now I'm going to enter the item number. I'm interested in ordering an item 210. Now, at this point in time, I'm going to pause and stop entering that particular process guide and actually exit that training material. A, because I've got enough information, I can follow my general sense of what I need to do, or B, I don't no longer need to enter this particular transaction. What we've configured OGL to do at that particular point in time is two things. For this particular guide, we want to capture feedback from the end users as to how useful it was or how useful it wasn't, and any particular anecdotal information that they'd like to record and send back to the training team that they can monitor. The other thing it's going to do, it's going to record that I got a certain way through that particular training guide and I crashed out at a certain step, which is very useful when it comes to the engagement level of your users as it relates to the training material. So what I showed you then was accessing the widget to find a training guide and then executing the training material off of that guide. We can also use it in the application. So, and the system's smart enough to know that I'm in the purchase order entry application. Would I like some help entering this particular purchase order? And if I hit yes, it will execute that same guide, but it's smart enough to know that, and this is the level of integration with JDE, that I'm at a particular point in that sequence. I don't need to go to the E1 page because I'm already in the purchase order entry application. Again, that's showing the power of the integration with JDE. So I'll just cancel that and skip out of the feedback. So I've showed you just one step guide in terms of stepping through that particular business process. I can also launch a job aid. So the job aid is a screen, an additional screen that is open, which I can dock onto a second screen. I can print this information to printer, to PDF. I can email this to another user, or typically when I'm operating on the help desk, this is the first point of contact when I want to communicate how to enter a particular transaction to an end user. But this shows me step by step that transaction that I've just entered, and is there as a companion whilst you're entering the transaction in real time. All right, just back to the widget. So I've got all of the Steltex pre-built content for OGL for JDE, of which there is a vast repository of process guides that have been developed. So again, as a user, such as the level of integration, it will only present the training material relative to my role, but I still may want to search on that training material to find information. So if I'm, for example, a fixed asset accountant and I search for fixed, apologies if I'm searching, it will return, and it has some smarts, it will return all of the training material associated to or close to fixed assets. So we know we refer to fixed assets as financial assets, fixed assets, etc. And it's returned all that information that is relevant to asset processing. I can even use the JDE systems codes, which the folks on the call that are familiar with JDE applications, again, such as the level of the application, it is aware of the system codes, the applications that JDE has. Some of the other features of OGL, so we can use the solution to push out surveys. So if you're wanting to get feedback in relation to your end user experience, we can do that through the use of surveys. So I've just showed you a simple example here of how we can push out surveys and get people to score or respond to those surveys. So think of continuous feedback. What features are you liking? What features are you not liking? How is your project going? You can capture this information, and that is stored in the analytics, that I'll showcase shortly. I'll just briefly show, just to round out this element of the demonstration, a couple of the other more advanced features which our customers are adopting. So I've mentioned a couple of times the conditional processing. We also have the concept of validation. So you can use OGL to validate the data that's being inputted into JDE. So a classic example of where you might like to use that is in when you're entering a supplier or when you're entering a customer, there are fields that are country by country specific. So for example, a tax ID, we know that it has to conform to a certain format, whether you're in a specific European country, whether you're in North America, whether you're in Asia. So you can use OGL, which is examining that particular field to ensure that the data is entered correctly. So only if and when I enter a correct tax ID, will it let me progress upon that particular transaction. So OGL can be used to validate the information at point of the time of entry, reducing errors and reducing downstream impacted effects of incorrect data being entered. The other feature that I'll showcase is the validation feature, so the conditional processing of a particular data entry. So you can use the OGL to drive different process guides or training material based on the information that is entered by the end user. So for this particular guide, I'm going to create an item. So typically this guide would present itself without me having to go navigate for it, but I'm just going to click on here. I'm going to add an item. So in this scenario, there's different training material associated to the different types of item that we have in our business. So if I enter a description, which is, and hit tab, the next feature it is going to ask me for is the stocking type. So depending on what I enter here, it will present different training material or a branch in the training logic based on whether it's a purchased item or it's a manufactured item. So quite quickly, you can provide dynamic, guided, conditional training material to your end users. I'll use M, and now it will display to me the manufactured item guide and step me through that based on the information that I've entered in the application, which is quite powerful. So that concludes the end user experience overview. I'll now move on to the analytics, which is where we capture all of those insights of what training material your end users are using, their assessment of that training material, and generally how they're interacting with the platform. So I'll jump back into the application. So the first demonstration I showed you was in JDE. Oracle Guided Learning for JDE is a SaaS-based application. So with that, you get access to a console. That console is connected in real time to your JDE environment, regardless of whether you're an on-premise or a cloud-based JDE user. And this tenancy is connected to the environment that I was just demonstrating. So I'm showcasing the analytics feature of the solution. And what I can see is that I have a complete snapshot of the usage and interactions with my training material across a certain time period. So this time period can be by day, week, month, quarter, or a specific time period. I can see how many guides have been engaged by my organization, what percentage of those guides are being used, how many active users I've got, how many guide runs, and importantly, my feedback. So I can quickly see and start to track trends over time. Am I improving the quality of my training material? Is my feedback improving? And you can see how often a guide is being used or a group of guides are being used in your organization. All of this information is drillable. So if I drill into that particular training guide that I ran, creating a purchase order, I can see that it's been run 145 times in this environment for that time period. I can click into that and I can get a rich array of information specific to that training guide. So I can see the time that has been spent across that particular guide. I can see where people are dropping out. Remember, I dropped out at a particular point in time. I can see how complete the guides are being executed. Again, I dropped out at probably about step number 6. And I can look at the feedback that my users are giving me as it pertains to that particular guide. So this guide, probably unsurprisingly, has got some good ratings in terms of it's stepping me through and it's showing me what I should and need to be doing from the particular transaction. But that may not be the case for all guides, and we'll see that example shortly. I'll go there now. So feedback. So here's a central analytics dashboard. I can see all the feedback for all of my guides, and I can quickly jump into the guides which are problematic. So in this time period, I've got 8 guides that have a rating of 3 stars. I can drill into that and I can see that a user has reported an issue with this guide in terms of perhaps it's the data selection. So I know which guide it is. So this example, it's the print order acknowledgement for the sales order management. I know who submitted it and I know what the issue is. So this is a solid prompt to go and fix that particular guide, communicate to the end users that guide has been selected, therefore uplifting the end user experience for your particular organization. Searching, so you saw me search for some training material. So I searched for fixed and I searched for P1204. All that metadata is captured in terms of what training material individuals in your organization are searching for. So in our environment, the most common search terms are the following, but more importantly, it tells me and attracts what people are searching for that is rendering a result, e.g. training material is being surfaced. And it also tells me what training material is not being surfaced, e.g. we don't have any training material for the search terms that they're searching for. So again, you have a data point or an opportunity to, if people are searching for something, often they're not finding training material, then it's a good lead indicator to suggest that you need to have some training material for that particular search term that they're using. Quite powerful. Surveys, I showed you surveys briefly. So this is where we capture the results of a survey. So I can drill into here. I can look at who's running a survey, what are the responses, and just use that information for further decision support. There is an optional feature which can be activated or deactivated, but you can actually track what training material at a user level is being run. Some countries and some organizations, this is a feature where you would deactivate, and some organizations want this feature activated so they can see who's completed what training guide over a particular time period. There's a rich repository of reports that come with the solution from an analytics perspective. So all this information can be reported on. And we have integration to, if you've got a centralized learning management solution, so an LMS application, which aggregates all the training material and how complete or how thorough the execution of that training material has been by a particular user, we can integrate that through to LMS type applications by exporting it out. So that concludes the second component of the demonstration, the business insight. So never before have JDE users had access to what training material is being used, the feedback, the general perception of that training material, that continuous improvement, and that continuous feedback to their end users. The third component of the demonstration, I'll show you the content console and where the content is administered. I'll show you some of the features, and I'll also show some of the components as it relates to multi-language. So again, within the OGL console, we are using that application to manage all of the content. And here is where we administer all of the components of the material that we've got. So pre-populated, when you engage with Steltex, we'll ship a lot of the pre-built content, but you can see there's a multitude of different products you could manage training content for. It's aware of all the JDE modules. So it's got a high level of integration to JDE. If I look at that training material that I've created, this is the actual training guide in the content repository authoring tool. I've got a lot of control as it relates to whether I publish that to production or activate it. It's in sync with JDE as it relates to the environment. And then I've also got a rich element of version history. So I can see that this particular training guide, and this is important for organizations that have audit requirements around their training guides, potentially safety implications or other pharmaceutical type legislation. They need to be able to track changes to their training material. So every change is tracked. This is a training guide that changes often. I can preview it and I can restore it. I can make edits to that particular guide very quickly. So I can jump into a content editor. I can control and replace en masse content. I can quickly jump in here, edit the content. I can replace the screenshots very quickly. And there is a recording tool or component that comes with the solution to help you record and take screenshots for your particular environment. I have the ability to apply conditional formatting. So I can base this on a date, a time. So the month-end scenario that I spoke about before, we could trigger that to only show 5 days before month-end, 3 days before month-end. Similarly, with a guide, we could have it as the first time a user signs in, or other logic that we can embed within the particular solution. So we've got sort of if then else and time-based conditional that we can add to the solution. Other pieces that we'll probably just skip over for the context of time, but we can automate if there's a broken link in your guide. The system's smart enough to identify that. You can run a health guide. It will tell you what's wrong with a particular guide. But I do want to show the language capability and the auto translation capability. So when you record the content, we would typically do that in English, but you have the ability to automatically translate that to a multitude of different languages. And you can see the choice of languages is quite broad. So record once and you can publish it to a multitude of different languages. If you wanted to add an additional language, it's a simple matter of adding it and pressing the save and exit button. Behind the scenes, the solution will then go and create that additional process guide in the language that you've selected. I'll just show you what that looks like in, if I was to look at perhaps some of the Dutch content that we've got. So you can see that it has created off of the English guide, it's automatically created the Dutch guides. From here, I can edit that and replace information if I wanted to. Again, you've got a find or replace feature to go there and edit the content as you see fit. And I will just show you what that looks like in JDE itself. So I'm now back into JDE. If I change my default language, again, this can be integrated into JDE. OGL actually has a more robust or complete range of languages than JDE does have natively, but this will render all of the training material in Dutch, and the solution will also use the Dutch language for all the prompts or the associated applications. So if I click that process guide, this information is automatically translated into, in this instance, Dutch language. So that concludes the demonstration component in terms of the JDE end user experience, the analytics, the insights that you get, and the content creation. I'll briefly show a small video on what OGL for JDE looks like on a non-JDE application. Again, we'll cover this off, but the solution can work on web-based applications. And the example that we have here is our mobility solution. So we can use OGL to communicate messages, communicate business process rules on non-JDE applications. And this example is on our Steltex App Share solution, but this can be applied to other web-based applications. So the scenario here is that we may be onboarding a new user in the warehouse or in the stocking location. It's actually going to step them through and familiarize them with the inventory management application in AppShare. So in this particular example, it's all about inquiring on a particular product and then giving them context around how to do that and what are the specific fields that they're inquiring on actually look like. So I've just looked up an item. This is showing the availability by location or stocking location. OGL is there to step them through the transaction, show them what this particular field means, show them what this particular field means, and generally orientate and onboard them into the particular application. So what we're showing here is an example of OGL working on a non-JDE application. So that's the demonstration done. I'm just showcasing some of the benefits of the integration. So I think I've showed that the solution is natively integrated with the work that we did with the JDE product development team and Oracle University, natively integrated into the JDE security model. So as of tools 9273, there is some configuration, soft coding in JDE that you can point to the OGL web console. The widget will appear. It is aware of your JDE security. It works across all JDE objects, custom, standard, as well as the orchestrator. That is supported by Oracle, so it's not a third-party application. So when you take your tools upgrades, when you take your ASUs, when you take your updates, that's all supported by Oracle. And it's OGL being a SaaS-based application, it is updated quarterly. So you get the benefit of OGL being SaaS. Things like artificial intelligence and suggestions and training suggestions are coming into play in terms of future releases of OGL. So it's always updating, always enhancing the user experience. And importantly, it knows who you are, what access do you have. It won't let you do or access training material outside of your JDE security role, your delegated authentication, delegated financial authority, and your JDE security. Finally, we've built a broad range of pre-built content. So covering off, there's over 300 process guides covering off all the typical modules that we deploy from a JDE environment. So everything from onboarding, look and feel, finance, through to supply chain operations, manufacturing. These are really accelerators for your project when you look to implement OGL. You're not starting with a blank canvas. You have a solid accelerator to tailor for your specific E1 pages or your environment. And that concludes the demonstration component. So I now hand back to Chris.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Jason and Peter, for incredibly informative session. I just wanted to cover off a few aspects before we get into Q&A. One of which is what's included. I'm sure this is of interest to everybody on the webinar today. What is actually included when we take on OGL for JDE to deploy into our environments? So just a couple of things that you may or may not have picked up through the session. So firstly, Daniel's just completed talking to us about it being natively deployed into JDE. So you do not have to worry about integration issues, either at this outset or throughout the new releases of either OGL or JDE. They're kept in sync for you by Oracle. Steltex provide the pre-written JDE content accelerators that Daniel just completed on, and they're there to give you a really strong acceleration into getting benefits out of OGL for JDE on day one. You can take those and you can make changes to those guides yourselves. You can build guides yourself. It's completely flexible from that point onward in terms of managing the guides and the information. All of the objects in JDE are covered by OGL for JDE. So your standard objects, non-standard objects, which you may have created, or you're using third-party solutions embedded in JDE, which are non-standard, they will be covered by OGL. And your orchestration. So to Jason's keynote, orchestrations have revolutionized how we approach building additional capabilities ourselves. And so as you're building your orchestrations, OGL for JDE will recognize those orchestrations. You can then run content for training purposes across your orchestrations to enhance the value of those orchestrations, actually educate people on how to use those and get the best out of them. Licenses is very, very interesting. So Oracle University are providing you with a license for JD Edwards and also for 2 additional web-based applications. And they are non-Oracle web-based applications. And you saw on the screens that Peter presented, that could be ServiceNow, that could be AppShare. So you can use OGL for JDE on JD Edwards plus 2 additional non-Oracle digital applications. If you're running UPK or if you're paying support for UPK, Oracle can provide us with a non-standard adjustment of your support costs to remove the costs of UPK from your JDE support. It does need approval. That is a process, and Steltex can take you through the process with Oracle to look to get your UPK costs taken out of your JDE annual subscription or annual support fee. And a bit of a spoiler alert, as we're talking, Oracle are continuing to invest in OGL for JDE and are currently looking at writing a UPK content migration solution, which will help you technically take the content from UPK and allow you to provision that into OGL for JDE. So there's a lot to unpack there, and I'm sure you'll have questions on this. If you look at the services that Steltex are able to offer you, we can provide you with the OGL licensing. OGL licensing is actually partner driven. So we will work with you. We will work with Oracle to provide you with licensing quotes and orders. The pre-written training guides, navigational guides that you saw Daniel presenting on, and all of the content that we provide, that is a service that we're able to provide you. Provisioning, installation, configuration of the system, training people on how to use OGL for JDE across all of the pillars that Daniel presented. UPK content migration, so not just from the technical perspective, but also in terms of, I guess, strategizing what's the content that's relevant and important to move from UPK to OGL. So we can help you with those strategies, and we can help you with the ongoing support through our helpline. Bunch of pre-written questions. I'm not going to go through them all here, but I'm sure everybody on the call would be very interested to know what's the release I've got to be on in order to get the benefits of OGL for JDE. Well, if you're on a tools release of 9.273 or later, you may have noticed the widget that Daniel was pointing to may appear, but wouldn't be activated. So without the OGL license, you won't be able to activate the widget. But if you are on tools release 9.2.7.3, then you are compliant, and it will integrate with JD Edwards for you. So look, a whole bunch of other questions there. We'll come back to this. We've talked about things like language. But what we'll do now is pause, and I'll just hand it back to Daniel, and Daniel is going to host the Q&A. So if there are questions you've already posted, we're going to start to look at those and come back and answer those. If you joined late and you didn't hear, but if you're welcome to add more questions into the Q&A button, which is on your dashboard. So I'm just going to hand things back to Daniel to host the Q&A session. Thanks, Daniel.
Thanks, Chris. So I've got 3 questions in the chat. Two I've already answered, but for the benefit of everyone, I'll just cover them off. So Caro mentioned your question was in relation to the non-Oracle applications. So have we come across any web-based applications that are not Oracle that we've had some challenges with enabling OGL for? And the answer to that one is not that I'm aware of or that we've come across. Typically in any JDE environment, you have a reference architecture or a common set of applications that are deployed to complement JDE. So that might be anything from Reports Now, ServiceNow, Cooper, Concur, all of those applications we've successfully deployed OGL for, which are web-based applications. So there's a broad range, really. Again, as long as they're web-based, we can embed the OGL tool to enable that. Second question was, I think we covered it off, Frank, but what version of tools in JDE is required, supported? So it's tools dependent. So 9.2.7.3 is when they natively enabled the OGL widget within JDE. Prior releases can still use OGL for JDE, but there is a requirement to install a browser extension. So on your end users, JDE users machines, there's a browser extension, which is a plugin to Chrome, which will enable OGL, and we've successfully done that for many customers. But it does mean that you're sort of managing that browser extension on a user-by-user basis. Native support 9.2.7.3 on application release 9.2 or anything that supports tools 9.2.7.3, basically. The third question, again from Caro, is a good one, and the answer is probably both. But what roles in the organisation do you see usually maintaining the training guidelines? Are these key users SMEs or IT employees? So in the deployments that we've done, we've seen both scenarios. So the recording and maintenance of the content is reasonably straightforward and intuitive. Organizations that empower their SMEs, the ones that own the process owners, have allowed those users to create, collate, and edit the training material. But we also have organizations that, as part of their SDLC, which is managed by the IT team, so when they promote from PY to UA to production, the IT team is there responsible for updating the training material. So that's sort of both scenarios. And probably the third scenario is that's a service that we provide. So we can update your training material as part of your promotion, continuous delivery process as a managed services offering. So there were the three questions that I received. Not aware of any more that have come through, but.
Okay, if anybody else has a question, we'll just happy to pause for a minute and allow you to send those through. Or if you want to raise your hand at that point, we might be able to take those on notice.
Chris, a quick comment from me. I think this has been a fantastic session. Thank you so much to Steltix and also to Peter for helping to set this up. I know I've learned a lot. I hope the audience have also learned a lot. And this is exciting stuff, I've got to say. This is really exciting stuff. So thank you and well done.
Great. Thank you, Jason, as well. All right. So look, we will then move on. If you want more information, if you want to do some study on this, research yourself, you can click on or grab the QR code there. That will take you through to an OGL for JDE page on our website, which is full of content, videos, recordings of other webinars that we've done, that you can access quite a lot of information there in terms of educating yourselves about it. Alternatively, I've listed up some contacts on the page as well. So sales in Europe through Steltix, Euron. So you can connect with Euron, you can connect with Daniel, and in terms of if you want to approach Daniel on OGL for JDE, Peter, I've got his contact details there, and Jason indirectly, but certainly the Apps Unlimited team on their contact point there. So please reach out to any of those contacts or all, and or on our website. You'll certainly get a lot more information there as well. So just before we close out, let me just thank Jason. Thank you, Jason, for your comments about the session. We appreciate it. So appreciate Jason's involvement in this session. Absolutely appreciate Peter Bellier from Oracle University, and Daniel for your time and in terms of putting this together, which I concur with. Jason has been highly informative, and I'm hoping everybody watching the session got a lot out of it. We will send, if you would like the presentation, we will send PDFs to you of the presentation, and also once we've got the video recorder downloaded, then that will be available as well if you're looking for a recording of today's webinar. So with that, on behalf of Oracle Apps Unlimited, Oracle University, and Steltix, thank you all so much for joining. I hope you got a lot from it, and we look forward to discussing OGL for JDE with you in the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thanks, Chris.